My theory why we have a burnout issue in our industry is because many optimizers are interested in finding the truth.
What is going on, certified homies? Welcome to another episode of From A to B. You have Shiva here, and I'm joined by André Morys. Oh, I tried to do the accent, and I didn't.
Where is your German accent, please? Can I have it again?
It never existed in my bloodline.
Sorry for this. Yeah, that's perfectly pronounced.
I hope so. So the running meme is I don't know how to pronounce anyone's names on these podcasts. So even I feel bad. Like even Erin Weigel, I pronounce her name Weigel, and I'm like, oh, that's how you pronounce it. It's like, no, that's not right. And I'm like, well, shit, you're my certified homie, and I can't even pronounce your name. Anyway.
Don't worry.
I'm like 0 for 11. I'll just continue the trend of not being able to pronounce names. Anyway, no one's here for me mispronouncing names. André, you're a certified homie. You're a CEO and founder at ConversionsKRAFT. I got your referral through Erin.
Erin Weigel.
Erin
Weigel.
Is it Weigel?
No, it's Erin Weigel. But
okay, good. Because I'm like, wait, no, did I? Okay, good. So from Erin, I just didn't pronounce the last name. I'm just gonna leave that alone. Just you won't mispronounce a name if you don't pronounce it.
Yeah, don't worry, Shiva. That's good.
The reason why I wanted to have you on here is because I was talking to someone about them just kind of being burned out in our space, in the CRO space. And while I'm sure in digital marketing or jobs, designers are burned out, engineers are burned out, COVID burned us all out, there's burnout persistent everywhere. But I wanted to talk to someone who is unique in the CRO space that could offer the feedback of how to specifically address burnout in the CRO space. Because I felt it, and I'm sure you felt it as well. So what are some ways that we can address this burnout? Well, let me ask you this question and start this off. What are some symptoms that you might have to show burnout in the CRO industry? If you were mentoring someone and you were talking to them, what would you say oh man, this dude's burned out?
So I think that's the worst thing about burnout. I experienced it myself. Maybe not in the most intense way, but I think I showed signs of burnout many times in my career, and I searched for external advice and help immediately. I mean, I have the advantage my wife is a psychologist, so I was aware about that. But some symptoms I realized myself is, for example, if it's hard to wake up in the morning and come out of the bed and start working, if it's like your energy is completely drained. Can you say that? You don't feel any energy, your boom is gone, So I think that's a symptom that many people ignore. So what is so hard about burnout is that you continue working and working. So you're losing energy on and on and on. So some people realize it if it's too late. I was not at that point, I have to admit. I was searching for help before I went into that stage. And maybe it's that stage where you really call it burnout. So I was pre-burnout. But I think, a lack of energy, that's the main symptom,
Yeah, I think one symptom for me is you log in and you look at your Slack messages and you're just audibly gasping. You're I guess I gotta clear out this share. I gotta start taking a look at it. So maybe unique to the space. If you are, for me, I'm always excited to look at test results. Even if I don't love the test, I'm excited about the results and I'm just interested in seeing what happens there. I don't think I've ever been not interested in that part of the testing, but I think a lot of times it's what's surrounding the actual A/B testing experimentation CRO process that kind of starts to exhaust you. One of those is I have 50 Slack messages that I got to clear out, and I can't even log into my testing tool because I got to clear this shit out first. Maybe that's one example. You kind of called out the passion. If you're just going through the motions of the testing rituals without maybe having your brain on and thinking more proactively and strategically, you're just all right, what do I got to get this test out? And you're just kind of ticking the box to get it out.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another symptom.
Yeah, and you're searching for distraction. There are these great tools like a timer for social media. So if you're skipping through LinkedIn or whatever and you're distracting yourself and you're not focusing on your work and what's important, then you might be in a pre-burnout stage already.
And I guess you want to try and address the pre-burnout before you actually get to that point of burnout where you're
Exactly.
like, all right, fuck this, I'm out.
You know, a real burnout, if you're suffering from a real burnout, it's such a severe condition. I think many people need at least months to recover from it, right? Some have to sacrifice their career or whatever. It's a serious condition. So I think what even more people know is this kind of pre-burnout. So yeah, it's important to understand the symptoms. Let me tell you, last year, December, I walked around, I thought, well, I feel like I have no energy anymore. I immediately canceled all my meetings and took like 2 months off to refocus and recover, because I know this stage. And if you feel it, don't continue.
What are some signs that you could think of, like differentiating the pre-burnout? I'm thinking pre-workout because I got to go to the gym. Pre-burnout versus the actual burnout, right? Like, what are some signs that you could say, okay, this is pre-burnout specific to the CRO space versus, like, you want to get to the point of quelling it before you get to the burnout?
I don't know. Maybe there are real like stages, and some psychologists describe them. I don't know. I'm an amateur. It's just what
I got to talk to your wife about
yes,
that.
Yes, maybe. But it's just my own experience that there is a stage before you are in real trouble. So real trouble means you might suffer from additional pathological disorders like depression. Like you're stopping to feel emotion. You can't be happy anymore. You don't have any energy, right? So this is real burnout. Some people describe it as I am in a stage where I think I need to cry, right, all the time. I can't stop it. So this is real burnout. While I think feeling the situation like I'm already losing some energy is like pre-burnout, but it's not a long time. You know, it's like a balance. Your work should give you energy and it costs energy, but the balance should always be positive, right? So you do something that is also fun for you, that inspires you, that motivates you, so you have a positive energy outcome. If it's for a longer time negative, you can cope it, right? You have some reserves, your body, your mind, there's some additional space. But if you continue with this for a long time and you completely eliminate all your energy, then you might end up with a real burnout.
I guess part of it is just don't run from your feelings.
Yeah.
Like, be in tune that it's okay to be frustrated with the like, I think unique to CRO, if you are frustrated with the way that things are working, that might be totally legit. You might just be working through things and you're like, man, this sucks. It's okay to say that out loud, like, man, this sucks. Like, don't run from the feelings, because if you just bury it, you might hide the symptoms of that burnout.
Yeah.
Where you could address it and be like, all right, I'm getting burned out with my lack of resourcing, for example, right? If you address that point head on and you could say, okay, I know I'm getting frustrated and burned out because I'm not getting the resourcing I need. You could perhaps take steps to address that, to get that burnout down, I guess, and like reduce that level and go back to a positive. Yeah.
It's like two levers, right? You have the positive energy and the negative energy. And it's like, if you are just slightly in that stage that for a couple of weeks or months you feel a deficit and you're on the negative side of the balance, change these levers. So ask yourself, what is it that creates negative energy, or what costs a lot of energy, and what are the things that I could emphasize that give back energy to me? What is it that motivates me? And that's why I think as a core reason, or like the root cause, why are there so many people in the CRO optimization experimentation industry suffering from this? And it's just my personal theory. I don't know if you want to hear it, but I
Yes.
My theory why we have a burnout issue in our industry is because many optimizers or experimenters are interested in finding the truth. I think A/B testing is all about finding truth. I see so many people that think, well, I have data to prove that this works or this doesn't. They have growth mindsets, meaning even if it's a negative result, they said, well, thank God I learned something. That's amazing. But the rest of the world does not work like this. The rest of the world does not appreciate the truth. Many times. I think that's the core reason why many people get burnout.
Okay. This is wild. I love this, by the way. I think you're 100% right. I'm going back, like, in my head. Here's a classic example of that. And I think it's interesting because folks with this mindset gravitate towards this space for that exact reason. People want the truth on things. At least that's the hope, right? Like, you don't want people who are just, fake running tests or doing stuff. Like, let's assume we take out the shills and we take out actual people who want to know the truth. So I just had like deviated septum surgery, and I wanted to talk to my doctor because I wanted to learn a little bit more about the process. Like, why is it that when planes descend, I have so much pressure in my face? Like, what's the cause? And he's like, well, you have polyps, you have a deviated septum, you're inflamed, so we have to do these things. And I'm like, okay. And then on my own, I watched an hour-long YouTube video, which is a lecture in like a medical scene on why this happens, to learn more about this thing, to like seek the truth, to see if this applies to me. And then when the surgery was fixed, I talked to my doctor and I'm like, so like what happened when you were inside? Did he fix the problem? Did you do like, I asked so many questions. My doctor's like, dude, shut up. But like, I'm like asking so many questions to try and learn more about that specific thing, to get to like, okay, there was a problem, you did a thing, solution. Now what are the results and what are the reasons why we will believe it's positive? What are the reasons why we'll believe it won't work? So it's not an A/B test, but it's that process of like the scientific method.
It's the same. And you will see that so many optimizers and people from the CRO space, they are curious. I think curiosity is one of the main traits, positive traits of optimizers. Being curious, open-minded, see all the facets. People want to understand everything. So what you describe currently is something my doctor hates me for that trait.
I'm sure mine does too, to be honest.
They want to be the authority. They know everything, and all the rest, they know nothing.
Well, I guess, okay, so sidebar, to be fair, I'm asking him questions with him being the authority.
That's clever.
Right? Like, that's what I'm doing. So I'm saying like, hey, I have a question. I think it's this. Is that right? So I'm like almost pumping up his tires to be like, you're the expert. Tell me how to do things the right way.
I'll try this with my doctor.
Because other doctors like to be smart, right? Like we want to be the source of truth and know what's happening versus not. So I love this thread, pulling it back to my random sidebar example of doctor shit. It's probable that a major cause of this burnout is we are so aggressively trying to seek the truth in user behavior, understand behavior, test, learn, that when we don't get that, it's like the biggest case of blue balls ever, that we're so frustrated because you hired us to do a job and then we're blocked from doing that job.
We are so many times blocked from doing that job because we don't understand that there is a reality around us with stakeholders that don't want to understand the truth. They just want to have a shiny project and present their great results to their management so they get a promotion. It's not about truth. And the optimizer that understands everything and the metrics and how it's done says bullshit. I wanna tell everyone that this is the biggest bullshit I've ever seen. But this is how the world works, and I think this comes way back from Industrial Revolution 100 years ago, how leadership worked or how we thought that leadership works, and I can highly recommend listening to Jeff Bezos. Jeff says, well, if you have been the truth teller like 200,000 years ago, the probability is high that they kill you, right? Or that they have killed you, because nobody wants to hear the truth. So truth seeking is in an academic way, in a scientific way, something we appreciate, but in a business way, not so much, not all the times.
All right, this is kind of depressing because almost what you're saying is a lot of CROs inherently have an uphill battle to fight in most jobs because you're fighting people who care more about their reality rather than the actual truth. And our job competes with that narrative of truth seeking and challenges them, yeah?
Exactly, because if you understood what stakeholder management is, it means that you should align your goals. So, Of course, there's a certain way to understand stakeholders and what their goals are and to help them and to get on the same side. But sometimes it's just pure bullshit and you can't stand it. It's too much, right? I know many agency people who were so happy to sell their CRO company. Right, I do this now for like 25 years, and around myself or my own company, I talked to so many people, and they were so happy to do an exit and say, well, I'm out of this shit. I'm out of it. I stopped convincing people that this is the right thing to do, right? Because if there is a top management or a company culture that does not appreciate the truth, that is not data driven and has kind of a academic or research-based approach, you might be the alien inside an organization, and that sometimes feels hard. There are many positive stories and people who changed it, or people who kind of work in an environment where it's positive, where it's appreciated. But many times I see burnout as a result of these conflicting values.
So I hope this isn't like reinforcing the people who are burned out listening to this episode to be like, all right, this sucks. I got to change jobs. I think it's probably right to feel the burnout, and don't ever run from the burnout, because like your feelings are valid. This is a tough industry to be in. As you said, there are many truth tellers who probably died a lot because they're just telling the truth, right? They're just saying for what it is. So we're already at an uphill battle, but folks like us have to exist, because otherwise people are just going to continue to make shitty decisions.
Exactly.
So we have to keep on fighting the good fight. Let's take it back to what is the burnout. Like, where is that burnout coming from? So I think we talked about one of like, you're persistently seeking the truth, and in many cases, you'll be blocked from that.
It's enough that it's not appreciated, right? I mean, blocking means it's like an active aggression, but many times just nobody listens to your stories. I mean, not all the times. I think if we are presenting our results nice and we involve people, I never seen that it's really blocked, but it maybe does not have the impact it could have. Yeah,
I'd say it's the equivalent of like hiring a private chef.
Yeah.
And all you do is eat Lunchables.
Yes, exactly.
Like that chef's gonna be like, dude, fuck that.
Yes,
It sucks. Like you're hiring someone to do a really good job on a thing, and then you're just not using them properly.
Mac and cheese all the day, every day. Yeah.
Hey, don't you dare talk bad about mac and cheese. That's a staple of my diet. Okay, so I think that's probably a major reason why CROs get burned out. If we had to bubble it down to other things, politics is probably a big reason that leads to the blocking of the seeking of the truth, right? So I think it's politics. Part of it's probably on resourcing, to say, okay, yeah, we want to believe the test results, but you're not letting me run any tests because of resourcing or politics or whatever. Another thought I had is around inconsistent resourcing and or inconsistent application of like a prioritization framework. So like if I'm in charge of CRO, I have my prioritization framework and I'm like, okay, these are the top tests we want to run based on the data, the results, iterations, ROI, blah, blah, blah. If I go through that process of following that prioritization and then the CEO comes in and is like, hey, fuck your prioritization framework, I want to run this test. Like, it's better to do that than not run the test, but that could still be extremely frustrating. And that could burn you out of like, why am I doing all this work if we're not going to follow it anyway?
As an optimizer, you might have a clear idea how this concept should look like, what you want to test and whatever. And so many people will have an opinion and want to participate, and they have other ideas and do it this. And so the more people you have that might be discussing with you how it looks like, the more average the whole concept and idea will be. And it costs you a lot of energy to get to this point. And the point means it's a weaker test than the one you would have done, right? So this could be really, really exhausting if 2 days before you want to launch this weak test that costs a lot of energy, the CEO says, well, now let's test this. But that's the reality. I mean, you're saying, well, fight for your right. No, align. It's important to understand the goals of your stakeholders. Like maybe you think your IT people or dev people are like a business prevention unit, but that will just create conflict and tension. Go to the people, talk to them, understand them. What is your goal? Try to help them understand why working together with you will help them reach their goal. That's better than fighting, yeah.
Right. I think that's a very good reframe. It's not necessarily saying be the person that they don't ever want to work with because all you do is argue with them. I love that idea of align with them, understand their goals, and then say, how can I support your goals? I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to support you. So let's work together.
See all your stakeholders and try to find the perfect path through that kind of map. Find a path through the stakeholder map with people where it's more easy to align compared to others where it's maybe hard to align.
So you brought up another interesting point. Many times you could be frustrated if there's so many cooks in the kitchen that you're like, all right, I have to get like 8 layers of approval for this stupid button color test. Like, this is stupid. Why can't we just run the damn thing and see what happens? It's a catch-22 because on one hand, the positive side, if you have many people involved in experimentation, you have the visibility of testing, and perhaps there's more people involved in like the visibility of testing, trying to be involved in testing, be part of that process. I think that could possibly be a good thing that more people want to be involved in the process. So like there is that one side, but it's totally reasonable on the other side that you're like, we shouldn't need 10 people to run every single test. Because if that's the case, you're going to run like one test a quarter and it's not going to be high impact. And like, there's just going to have a lot of politics. So I'm curious, like, can you flesh that out a little bit more of like, how do you address maybe the burnout of like, all right, you want to involve people so that they're interested in experimentation without burning yourself off? Like, dude, everyone has to check this off. That's too many people.
So there is a saying in German, I don't know if it works in English, but in German you say, on average, Switzerland is flat, right? So meaning if you put so many opinions in one, you create something average mixed up, it will produce weak results. Right? So that's the dilemma. The more people you involve, the higher is the risk that you have an average idea. So the courage, the grit will be eliminated by committees. Committees destroy grit. Actually, you start a committee because you don't have grit. Right? Or courage.
I was more like trying to understand the example. So on average, Switzerland's flat. And is that because there's a lot of hills and there's a lot of
high hills, deep valley. So if you take the average from all the heights, it's just flat. Yeah.
I love that saying. I've never heard it before, and I'm going to copy that.
It's something you say in German, yeah. Im Durchschnitt ist die Schweiz flach. That's how you say it. Anyway, so that's I see that many times. Basically, you can prove it with data. So we have programs running for different types of companies, and of course, there are companies that have a culture that is like trying to find the best possible way between all the opinions. So this kind of cultures, you could call it a weak culture. It's not very agile. It does not tend to be, creating big contrast, right? This costs a lot of energy, and especially, I don't know how it is in the US. I think in many European cultures or companies, I see that culture many times. And so I can prove with data that these optimization programs create weaker results compared to programs maybe for smaller companies or companies with another culture that apply the concept of courage and contrast on grit, and they go for the big wins by doing tests that are not that weak and average. But what could you do? I mean, you're asking what's the how can you apply this, right? And I think this is hard. If you're coming out of a position where you maybe can't change the organization or the culture, this is a tough one.
One last point before we jump into like how to solve for it. One of the things I've kind of summarized from hearing you talk is like sometimes the burnout comes from dealing with testing rather than actually testing, right?
Yes.
When you spend 80% of your time dealing with the testing and not actually strategizing on running the testing, chasing approvals, doing this and that, it's almost like I'm frustrated with my job as the tester, but really, or I was hired to test, but my job is a glorified get approval from people. You know, it's funny, there's some product owners I've seen that get really frustrated because their product ownership gets translated into effectively project management for what leadership tells you to do. And in that same way, CROs can fall into that same trap of all you're doing is taking notes on what everyone else wants to do, rather than perhaps if you're the strategist actually strategizing and having your own original ideas, conducting the research. That being the case, it's not don't take ideas from other people. You should absolutely do that. But if all you're doing is translating everyone else's ideas and you don't have your own original ideas, you might get that burnout. And if all you're doing is chasing people to like, hey, did you approve this design? Can you approve this? Like, then you're probably, unless that's what you really like doing, which I don't know how many people like doing that. Maybe some project owners really like doing that, but it's not for me.
Well, but actually there are many product owners that love that job of just moving tickets in their tool from one column to the next column. Yeah, if you're happy with that. Yeah, but if you have that feeling, if I could do it the way I want to do it, right? That if you have that kind of feeling, that might be an issue. Yeah.
let's start transitioning into like, what can you actually do knowing that you've recognized the signs of burnout? We've kind of discussed some examples of that burnout. I was talking to Romeo Santiago at Experiment Nation about this, and he gave me sage advice. Ready for this? Take a nap.
Yeah.
That's like, sometimes you just gotta like unplug. Like you said, you took a 2-month vacation. I wish I had that luxury. I don't have that luxury. But like, just sometimes you just got to step away for a little bit, unplug, take a nap, reset. That's true of like life in general, but sometimes you just got to take a nap.
And remember, my message was you have the 2 levers, right? How do you pronounce it in the US? Lever or lever? How do you say?
It's like, yeah, it's like,
I don't know.
They're both correct.
They're both correct, right? I don't know what you say.
Like tomato, tomato,
okay,
even though tomato is not a
lever.
word.
Yeah, what do you say?
It depends.
What? Really? You say both?
Yeah.
Okay, let's stay with lever. So you have the...
Like, it's route versus route.
Yes.
Right? They're 2 different things.
Yeah.
It just depends. I don't know.
So remember, there are 2 levers, right? One is positive energy. The other one is negative energy. As soon as you discovered signs of burnout, it's important to massively change the balance between positive and negative energy, which means use significantly more time for positive things. That could be a nap, that could be sports, that could be walking the dog, whatever, hobbies, everything that gives you energy, but also inside your job. And the other lever is, of course, immediately reduce negative things. There's a quote that is meditate an hour a day, except you suffer from stress, then meditate 2 hours a day. So that's all about changing the levers, right? Immediately. That's so important to take action immediately. Yeah.
So those are like more generic if you feel burnout, regardless of CRO. I'd like to dig into if there are some specific examples of addressing CRO-specific burnout. So a couple of things that I thought about with this topic is sometimes it's good to just take a step back and reflect on your testing program as a whole. Like, I was hitting burnout a couple jobs ago of like, this is frustrating. I'm getting really frustrated with everything. And I took a step back like, all right, I've run 100 tests and I've had like 10 huge test winners. And it might be very frustrating now, but there was a golden age. And I think there's some ways that we could get to that golden age again. So it's almost just like, remember that you've built a solid program to date. And I think as optimizers, we are perpetually looking up to get better, 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 better. Sometimes you got to look down and be like, I climbed a really big hill. That doesn't mean I can't keep going up, but I'm higher than 90% of people who tried doing this. So like, reflect on like your own personal capabilities, that you built something fucking dope, you know?
And that's great advice, because I remember that when I suffered from burnout symptoms, the people I was going searching for advice, they basically gave me the same advice. I said, take a step back and try to see the progress, because real life maybe goes like this and it feels like, wow, this is exhausting. But you take a step back, you see the bigger pattern, say, well, it was up and down and up and down. But in the bigger pattern is like things are going upwards. You need to take time and the perfect situation, whatever, to reflect without daily stress. You know, our routines are in like 30-minute slots. You have meetings and this and that. How could you actually take a step back and look at the progress of the last, let's say, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever? Do that. It might be a way to see the positive things, to connect to the positive things. What was the pattern, that you see,
And maybe, you know, it's funny, that might actually be a good way to be like, what was good 2 years ago? How was it working 2 years ago? What's changed? Because then maybe you could look at that and be like, okay, that was the reason this thing changed. I've now introduced 5 new stakeholders into the testing process. Before it wasn't 5. So maybe I need to optimize that little thing and spend some gears and time, because maybe that's your burnout. You need to fix that, you know?
Exactly. And make a list with the things that create positive energy and that create negative energy, and try to change the ratio, right? That's another thing I would do. But also, burnout or negative energy does not just come from activities. It might come from people, right? So that would be an additional advice I would give, especially in the CRO area. Create a map of all the stakeholders. Just for you personally, do it with pen and paper and write down which are the people that really suck away all the energy from your brain or whatever.
I actually love this. So I think that your advice is basically like, map out your whole CRO process. Add the people, add the processes, and then put like sad smiley faces next to the things that give you frustration, and then add smiley faces to the things that spark joy.
Yes.
And you almost do your like own audit of your CRO program. I love that. I think I might actually do that next week.
Do that. Yeah. But also don't see stakeholders that might be difficult as enemies. Try to counterintuitively reach out to them. Try to find a situation where you can talk to them, understand their situation, and try to align and solve things. Maybe you can change them from little devil with blood and towards smiley, right? Just by talking to them. That maybe would be amazing.
I totally agree. This is something that it sounds stupid to say, like it shouldn't be our jobs, but it kind of is.
It is.
It's managing these relationships with these stakeholders and like be human with them, because they have their own set of inputs that they probably don't tell you about. So I'll tell you this quick story. Like one example I had is a very problematic product owner at like a couple jobs ago that I'd work with this person all the time. And I'm like, please just test this. Like, why are we doing all this shit? We're not testing anything. All your ideas sound fucking stupid. Like you have no research. And I'd get so frustrated. And then one time I just had like a human conversation with this person. And then they were like, I agree with you. All this shit sucks. It's because the CEO is telling me to do this. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. The enemy of the enemy is my friend. Actually, so this person and I are now like very good friends. But what ended up happening was I wrongly assumed that this person was like, they were the source of all this frustration. But the reality was this person and I were actually aligned with most things, but they were getting external pressure from someone else to do all of these things that they didn't even want to do. So then me and that person became allies and we're like, all right, let's do this thing together. That's where we established a really good like relationship on that side.
There's actually something that is called the allegory of caves, right? From Plato. Means we all sit in our own caves and we think this is our reality. And we cannot understand that we don't share the same reality, because this product guy that you hated first, he just sits in his cave. What did you do in this situation? You went over and tried to see the world how it is from his shoes. Can I say that? No. Anyway, but yeah, you came to him and visited basically his cave, tried to understand his reality, and this is a maneuver you can do all the time. That people where you think, well, they're my enemies, I hate them, why are they so stupid? Why do they have only stupid ideas? Go to them, talk to them, understand their cave, and Google Plato and allegory of caves. I think that's how it's called. Allegory of the cave. That's how it's called.
I hate that both you, Juliana, and Bhav Patel all are super cultured. Oh. And you're throwing out these like awesome Greek quotes. No. And I'm just like, God, I am so uncultured.
No. Don't worry. It's actually, I have to give a shout out here to my colleague Gabriel, who started this conversation in my company about this allegory of the cave.
So, okay, I think the last bit of advice I want to give to folks addressing burnout is try your best to, I don't want to say fight, like you said, align with the stakeholders, try out these specific things to address the burnout, find the symptom of the burnout, try to address that symptom of the burnout. There are nuclear options where at some point, if you feel like you've done everything you can to address the burnout, it might be that, like you said, you're in a company that just, they don't want to hear the truth. And your job is to bring the truth and they don't want to hear it. The nuclear option is find a place, change jobs that will give you that opportunity to speak the truth and recognize your talents rather than, if all you're doing is presenting positive test results and they're like, fuck you, I don't care, might be time to change. And don't be afraid to realize that might be the reality of the situation, unfortunately.
If it's really that case, yeah, I would completely follow your advice. Don't waste your talent in a company that they basically don't need your talent, right? That's so
exactly
a waste of time, and don't do that. But be sure that you really talk to everyone. Maybe there is somebody that would be interested, and maybe it's the CFO.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so let's transition over to the next section. So, Andre, what is it time for?
Oh, damn, I forgot it. What is it time for? Yeah. What was
time for shit you need to know.
Yeah, shit you need to know. Yeah. It's time for fucking shit you need to know. Come on.
All right, There it is. Let's go. Okay, doke. So shit you need to know this week comes courtesy of Kate Moran of Nielsen Norman Group. So I figure this is something that you would probably agree with, but I'm curious if you have any disagreements on this. So the genesis of her post is synthetic users. She poses this question as like, hey, well, synthetic users aren't perfect, but they're better than nothing, right? And then she's like, no. It's not. That's not the case. A lot of times, effectively, her sentiments like synthetic users could actually be worse than no users because they could be misleading. So synthetic users being like AI, ChatGPT, shit like that. So her sentiment here is like synthetic research, and I'm quoting her here, synthetic research is not the same as real research, which I'm sure you'd agree with on that. If you're not doing any real research, you won't catch inaccuracies. The fault or the challenge here is some folks might believe synthetic research is good enough compared to the actual research on your actual users.
I think it's good enough. How is the lady called? I forgot her name.
Kate Moran?
Kate Moran. Yeah. So I think she comes from a company that is what we call the high end of innovation. So of course, these guys invented user research. So in my company, somebody said, well, I just prompted this and I came to the same results as that user research for 25K. What should we do? And I realized, well, that person is responsible for the revenue we make with user research. So, of course, this person doesn't want to sacrifice that revenue. But yes, I agree. Synthetic users, insights you create from AI might be exactly that good enough quality. And I see so many people in product teams don't having access to real users, so don't doing discovery at all. Let's go directly to the ideation workshop. So they create stupid ideas that other people have to test then and get burnout. So maybe it's better to give these people a synthetic user, AI user, whatever, chatbot, custom GPT, so they can basically pretend talking to their users because I think it's good enough quality.
Okay, this is great. I actually love this because I was expecting you to agree, but the challenge here, I actually disagree with that. So let's go into this a little bit more. One point I want to talk to you about here is, what is the true cost of talking to your users? Like, how much of a cost is it versus synthetic? I don't hear that argument as much because I think the cost to actually talk to your users is not much. And how much more is it compared to the AI users? What do you think about that? Do you think that cost truly is prohibitive to talking to users compared to the AI stuff?
If you frame it as cost, it means like it's about money or budget and
dollars.
Maybe
it could be time too.
Exactly. I think it's also like barriers that might not be solvable with money. Like I'm sitting in my daily routines as a product guy in my agile team. Where do I start? Where do I find real customers? So I agree. It might be better and cheaper if I find somebody from the customer service, whatever team. So please schedule 5 calls for me, 1 each day. I will find topics. I just need a way how to talk to customers. But I think so many people have this barrier. I wouldn't say it's about cost. It's about how do I actually start? Where do I find real users? So yeah, I think it would be better to have something like this and talk to real people, but also there's a negative side that don't see, and that's biased answers. So if you are not skilled in doing interviews and you're not skilled in recognizing biased answers, you might get you end up asking the wrong questions, getting the wrong answers that can be much, much more expensive than using a chatbot to talk to a synthetic user.
So it's interesting. In her post, she actually says, like, she calls out something related to this, which is like, understand that sometimes people's documented thinking and behaviors are different than reality, right? Users might say they want something, but it's on the researcher to read between the lines and hear the actual problem, which is a skill that is totally aligned. It is a skill to be able to not only ask the right questions, but get the right answers and read between the lines. So I totally hear that. I guess I'd argue, is that not a skill issue with like AI users versus real users? Is that
no, it's a human bias problem. You know, what car brand are you driving?
I am driving a Mazda.
A Mazda. Okay, that seems to be reasonable. Yeah, I tell the story always with a BMW, you know, because I hoped you're driving a BMW or something like that, because
I'm not that bougie.
Oh, yeah, but that's, imagine you're doing a research for BMW and you want to find out the jobs to be done in each level, like emotional, social, functional jobs. No way you will get the answer that somebody says, well, I just actually bought the BMW to impress my friends and neighbors because I suffer from a really low self-esteem. Nobody says that. It's impossible. You cannot let's say that. So that reflects the maybe emotional or social job why you are buying a certain car brand. I'm just making things up, I'm messing around.
But won't you also similarly not get that answer with the synthetic users?
I tried it. You get it immediately. You don't even need a specific custom GPT. Just ask ChatGPT. What are the jobs to be done that BMW is doing good on? And it will sell. It's a social job is for social acceptance and appreciation. People spend the most money for appreciation, but they will never admit, never. So that are the barriers of real user research. So I would say in a perfect world, of course, you do both. You reduce the barriers. You're able to speak to real people. You do the most advanced research, whatever, for 25K. But of course, the first thing you could do, and it's not bad to do it, is work with AI and try to get an idea of what's going on here.
So one of the things she calls out in her post too is she says, I want to avoid synthetic research because, and again, I agree, I align with you that this is a UX research company that's arguing for the best possible outcomes. In the same way, us CROs are like, you should run an A/B test always in all of your traffic for everything, but there's a level of practicality that we have to have. So I totally respect the point of, while the best is the best,
yeah,
not everyone can afford the best.
And you should understand the innovator's dilemma. So read about Clayton Christensen's disruptive strategy and why.
Hey, see, you're so well read in culture. I don't know shit about this. Dude, I just read LinkedIn stuff.
People will always go for the good enough quality. It doesn't matter what Katie, what was her name? I forgot it. Sorry.
Kate.
It doesn't matter what Kate's revenue goals with her employers are. What people will do is they will always go towards, like gravity, towards the lowest amount of friction. What's the easiest way to give me a good enough quality? That's how disruption works. So if she said, well, I don't care about it, that's called the innovator's dilemma.
It's really interesting because that has a lot of parallels in CRO, right? Where you have like people who think CRO is just take a checklist that you commented checklist on someone's random LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're right. It's really easy to do, but the ROI is, I guess, infinite because the cost is $0, or I guess is divided by error 0, whatever. I don't know the math. One thing that I think I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. So she calls out, she wants you to avoid synthetic research if your stakeholders may see synthetic research as a replacement for real research. And I think that's a real challenge, right? There's a reality that maybe you have synthetic research and maybe you start with that. And then as you get more money, as you build a better UX program, you build more maturity, you can graduate towards higher levels. But do you think there's a risk that leadership might see, okay, synthetic research equals real research and we don't ever have to spend more money, we'll just do the AI shit?
Yeah, I mean, you should ask yourself, like, let's assume that an AI research with synthetic users gets to, like, let's say, like a 65% quality with nearly zero cost. Then you have, so it's, as you said, infinite ROI. But then you have to prove how much ROI do you gain by improving the quality with real research. It's always good to aim for the higher validity, but prove the ROI.
Okay, that's really interesting. I think that's good feedback to say. You have to be able to prove how much better it is than not. Totally, that makes sense.
And it depends on your product. Is your product a B2C commodity? Then you might end up go for the quick ROI. Do you have a complex B2B product? Well, maybe you need to interview all the people from the buying center to get the reality. And there's no way AI could understand it today, right? So it depends also on your industry.
Yeah, obviously this question that she poses, or this post, has nuance in it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I think that's a great spot to wrap. André Morys. No, I didn't do the André Morys.
Yeah, that's French. Très français.
That's French.
Très français. André Morys. Yeah, you can pronounce it like that if you like.
Okay, that's apparently as good as it's gonna get. Thank you so much for joining on this. I really hope that people can take away some positivity in you're burned out.
Yeah.
Here's ways to hopefully try and fix that. I know we kind of went in some like sad places in the middle of the conversation, but I hope that people can take away of like positivity from this. One thing I'll plug here is Experiment Nation has a CRO therapy to like people to go in and like, it's not recorded, just talk to people. There should be more safe spaces for you to like vent and talk about your problems. So feel free to join that. André, I'm sure your DMs are open for people if they want to talk to you about like, hey, I'm feeling a little under the weather or blue and demotivated. How can I help? My DMs are always open too.
Whatever it is, you can connect with me on LinkedIn all the time. Just please add a little note that you listen to this podcast so I can separate you from all the sales pitches.
Salespeople who are trying to sell you bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Andre, anything else you want to plug?
No, it's perfectly fine. I think that would be an additional advice. Go to people, talk to people, look for a mentor, and talk openly about your issues. I never realized, or I never was in a situation where somebody talked openly about their issues and everybody said like, oh, that's so, oh, why? No, embarrassing.
Yeah.
No, do it. It creates usually positive energy. So dare to open up.
And if you think you're alone, you're definitely not alone.
No.
I'm sure many of us feel the same things you're feeling.
I can give you a list of at least 10 people you can talk to.
Yeah, for sure. Andre, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was great fun.